Dr. Shiv Chopra, thank you so much for coming to Vancouver all the way from Ottawa to talk about the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and its effect that it would have on our health and our food. What are the health concerns for people eating modern meat today in Canada?
Modern meat is produced in very toxic conditions, and there's all kinds of things going into their hormones, antibiotics, slaughterhouse waste, all kinds of things. And then the animals are fed on crops that are treated with pesticides, and also some are directly genetically modified. So there's all kinds of attacks on the food, and through crops going into animals, and animals then being eaten by people, but animals are also being eaten by other animals before people eat them. In other words, that all that slaughterhouse waste is going back to be fed to animals. So that way disease gets concentrated and circulated. And as a result, now population is becoming very unhealthy. There's disease, chronic disease developing in children, and that will last their whole life. And so the question is, why are we doing that? If you're eating meat, I'm not against eating meat. That's healthy. That's part of the human diet. But eating meat this way is obviously harmful. It's harmful to the animals. It's harmful to the environment. It's harmful to people. So there's no point doing that. And so therefore, one way to resist that is I'm opting out. To produce meat itself, you have to use 7 pounds of grain to produce 1 pound of beef. And that proportion, we can't afford to spend that much water. You need more land, you need more crops. So why not just eat the products that animals produce, egg, dairy, and so on, and some meat. But this abundant amount of meat is changing also, is adding to the climate change. We're burning all that energy. Then we're trucking those animals. Then we're refrigerating, freezing. All that energy is going into just to support the meat industry. And so it's supposed to be a sign of affluence. I think it's a sign of decadence for society.
Thank you. And given that the situation, how is Health Canada protecting the health of Canadians if they allow the 5 toxins you talked about earlier, the 5 things that we need to get out of our food supply? So what would you recommend, having worked at Health Canada for 35 years, for them to do immediately to improve the health of our food that Canadians are eating?
Well, I personally have done what I could as an employee of Health Canada. All those struggles, whistleblowing and saying and getting fired in the process. But I'm just one individual. My job is to inform the people that this is what's happening. Now it's the people who will have to demand that we have a law in the country, the Food and Drugs Act, regulations. Those have to be implemented as written. And if they don't do that, that means there is corruption. Something is happening. Why is Health Canada not applying the law as given to them under the authority of the Parliament? Right? Then it becomes the responsibility of the Parliament to check out, why is this not being done? Why is the Prime Minister not asking that question? Why aren't the people? Why isn't the medical profession asking that question? Where is this much disease coming from? So I think it's a collective effort, and people are beginning to wake up. And people now want to demand. But I don't think it's going to go away that way, because Health Canada and governments are also complicit in overruling the existing laws and make some trade agreements and not tell people what's happening. They're saying by doing so we'll create more money. Well, money for what? If you lose your health.
And for who?
And for whom and who is going to make it? And that money has no value at all. If you lose your health, if you create disease, then you have to treat disease as well. Then you even spend more money. So where is all that money going to come from? This is a circular argument, and it's going up and up and up. And therefore, the economies are in trouble, the politicians are in trouble. The politicians make all kinds of promises which they cannot deliver. They have to work within the laws.
Yes. And this kind of change is going to have to come from the ground up, from the grassroots up, and the people have to be informed rather than left in the darkness. And when people finally understand what's going on, when the people lead, the politicians will follow. But seems to be a concerted effort to keep people dumbed down or distracted, either by intent, accident, or ignorance.
I think people are waking up now. I think the time has come. People are asking questions. Why isn't the economy improving if you've been saying for 30, 40, 50 years? There's recession and unemployment and goes on and on. All these promises they make, they can't make. All these healthcare, extra healthcare provisions they say they will make, they're not deliverable. Countries are going bankrupt. The United States spends 20% of its GDP on healthcare. Ontario government spends 50% of its budget on healthcare. Is that deliverable? That's impossible. And on what? In giving people drugs, in giving more surgeries? That's we've saturated the system. It's not possible to keep doing that.
They've taken the slaughterhouse from the factory farm and brought it into the hospital.
Yeah. And there are no jobs. Wherever you go, there are robots working. And whether it's in a slaughterhouse or any delivery system, or you go to a grocery store, you're talking to machines, and the machines don't respond. You can't make a telephone call anywhere without waiting half an hour. So none of this is benefiting society. And so we, relatively speaking, gradually actually are becoming poorer and poorer and poorer. We're becoming third world countries. That's what's going to happen if we don't get back from this. But governments and politicians are not listening because the corporations have taken over. And the corporations cannot make more money unless they're corrupt. That's the only way for them to make more money, because unless they do things which are not allowed and the government begins to allow, that's corruption, obviously. You're corrupting the laws, you're corrupting all information systems. So people, I think, are beginning to wake up.